cool. Well, hey man, thank you very much for joining the show. We're totally
Yes,
blessed
sir.
and honored to have you on today and tell us about your story and your experience. I was checking out your website and your story and kind of following you on Facebook a little bit. And I love that you've been doing this, basically since you were in high school.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of out of necessity. I've always had junk cars, and that comes with the territory. You always have to work on your old cars, and I didn't ever really have a lot of money that I could just spend on taking my car to a shop. So I figured learning how to work on cars would probably do good in life.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, I know there's a ton of people that'll be watching this show that want to understand how somebody that went from, working on cars and kind of maybe doing it as a hobby or maybe doing it out of necessity, that then was able to turn it into a business. We're
Right.
all about helping, future owners understand like, what it's going to take from people that have done it before. So maybe help us better understand a little bit of like what that journey looked like.
Well, I mean, it kind of started almost by accident. Being a car guy, being around cars all the time, working on my own cars, just being around friends. Hey, my car broke down, and the shop said it'll be a week before they can get into to look at it. What do you think? Well, I can come by and look at it and see what maybe it's just alternator or starter or battery or whatever. So I started doing that, and after word kind of got out, and then like friends of friends and just random people that I've met throughout my day, hey, you work on cars? Sure, let me come. They need some help. So I had a full-time job, and I was doing the car thing nights and weekends several days a week. So I finally figured, hey, since I'm doing this so much, I should take a legitimate stab at it and start a business and at least have a few protections in case something went sideways, that I wasn't just leaving myself out there.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
I got you.
Yeah. I love it.
Brian, I've been calling on traditional shops for a long time in my life, and I've had the pleasure of being able to stumble across, and I'll say stumble across as an outside salesman, a couple of, like yourself, the mobile mechanics. So talk about that journey into how you kind of made that decision to do the mobile side versus taking on a lot of the headache and the upfront costs of brick and mortar. So like, where do you kind of land on that? What advice would you have for somebody looking to kind of go into this business themselves and contemplating becoming a mobile mechanic versus having the brick and mortar location?
Well, so a little bit of my background has been in heavy equipment maintenance and aviation maintenance, and both of those, they really rely on the technician being mobile, because it's,
gotcha.
Especially with heavy equipment, it's hard to get the equipment into a shop if it breaks down way out in the field somewhere. And then also if an aircraft, something happens in an aircraft, they have to set it down other than where they were planning on going or where the repair facility is. They will usually send a technician to that and then do a repair there for minor things. So I kind of have experience, but with both of those. And then as far as being mobile, the overhead is a lot less. You're not really tied down to being in one place all the time. One of my I think being in one spot one time or one spot all the time is kind of akin to torture for me. I like being outside and being in different places and experiencing the challenges and kind of rewards that go with that.
Gotcha. So do you still do the heavy equipment and the aircraft repair?
I do a little bit of heavy equipment, and I've got a couple of friends that are still in the aircraft aviation field, and I help them with stuff whenever I can. So it's not primarily what I do, but I know on one of my Instagram reels it says someone came up with planes, trains, and automobiles. So I've worked them all.
I love that.
I like it. That's a good catch right there, man.
Yeah.
Now, since you don't have that brick and mortar, right, where people are driving by, or the ability to kind of flyer, the neighborhoods, specifically, do you find it more difficult to get business, or because you are mobile and you have that flexibility, is it easier to get business?
It's kind of a catch-22, because right now what I'm having a hard time doing is marketing a service that people don't realize exists. So every day I meet someone that has no idea that a mobile mechanic is a thing. Either that, or they've had experience with, a guy in a car with a bag of tools, and it was probably not the greatest experience. So, when I show up to someone, I've got a nice truck, I've got a uniform, I've got, a business license, I have insurance, I have, several tens of thousands of dollars in tools, and a nice vehicle with a wrap and everything. I feel like I'm leaps and bounds ahead of some of the other places, and it also gives the customer that peace of mind, that, hey, this guy's legit. He's a real mechanic. He's, gonna my car will be all right in his hands.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely have that more professional status,
Right.
appearance, when you're coming there, with a full website and your car wrapped and your uniform, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, you're just showing up in a car with a bag of tools.
Right.
Exactly. I just left the shop that somebody else owns after work with my bag of tools and came over to your house to do this part time.
Yeah, exactly. And
that's a different experience, isn't it?
Yeah, not knocking any of those guys. Like I started when I first started doing this, probably for a year before I started my business, I had a Subaru Forester, and I went from having a little canvas mechanic's tote to the smallest Craftsman three drawer box that you can carry around with like an aluminum racing jack, and that worked for me for a year. But then a lot of what I do is emergency breakdown stuff. So what I found is there's common failure items on just about any vehicle, and if it's something that I can keep in my truck that I use regularly, or it's one of those things where I know it's going to fail no matter what, wherever it's at. If I keep it in my truck and someone calls me, and I have it, that's something I really do enjoy doing, is just being able to be, go to the back of my truck and pull out this one part, and here you go, get on your way and get to your vacation or get back home, or, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any sort of technology, Brian, that helps you keep track of kind of those commonly used parts, or the ones that you see most often, or is that just something that you do in your head? Is there anything that you do to help you be prepared for those situations a little bit better?
I mean, right now it's kind of anecdotally. I've got a notepad somewhere that I have a few things written down, but
I think we lost your volume, Brian.
We lost you.
I have 3 of them in my truck. Just certain, like I said, certain like common failure items. I carry a bunch of different relays and battery connectors and just certain things that you see that are broke all the time. A few different different size tensioner pulleys, and I carry a Ford starter, a Chevy starter, and the same alternators for both of them. So if it's one of those things where someone breaks down and it's out of the hours of the parts store being open, I've got it and can get you back on the road.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of the folks that we've talked to kind of got their first jobs working out of their garage. So I know you talked about maybe getting some of your first jobs with your Subaru, going over to those locations. Help me better understand, what did that journey look like? So, I mean, you were committed to fixing cars, you're committed to helping people, whether it was your garage or at their place, what made you decide, like, hey, I'm gonna do this, going to them? And, it's almost a little bit more of a hospitality approach to how you're servicing people, because you're hitting them kind of in their, where they're in a bad spot, right? I mean, it's a little bit more of an emergency service. It's a little bit more of like, hey, I need it now.
Right.
What does that look like?
Well, so when I first started this, I started it just because I didn't have a shop. I didn't have where I was renting, and I didn't have a place that I could bring my car, and also I didn't ever really want to just have the just mass population show up at my house and drop a car off and that just always, I want to try to keep that separate from, from my home life.
Mhm.
So it just, I don't know. I think I had a mind shift when I initially started this, because I was thinking from the perspective of I don't have to charge as much because there's no overhead. When
Yeah.
I should have been thinking I can charge either as much as a shop or maybe a little more in some instances, because I'm providing a service to you. Because right now, like if you go to leave today and your car doesn't start, your options are pretty slim. You can either get it towed to a shop, you can call a buddy, and y'all can come figure it out in the parking lot, or that's pretty much about it. So in this instance, you can call a mobile mechanic, and he can come to your parking lot at work, wherever you're at, and you can sit in the AC, and he can tell you, hey, it's a battery or it's a starter, and hopefully he has the starter with him, or ideally you can have a 5 or 10 minute conversation on the phone, and he can figure out, hey, it's more than likely your battery, or it's more than likely your starter. Let me grab one of those and bring it with me, and then get it, do the repair, and then you're back on the road, and you don't have to worry about letting your car sit at the shop for a couple of days for them to diagnose it.
Yeah. I mean, I love that paradigm shift, right? Going
Yes.
into this business of saying, hey, I can be kind of the low cost guy,
Right.
to saying, hey, I'm running a business here and
Yeah.
I'm providing a tremendous amount of value, maybe even more
Right.
value, because I'm able to meet the customer at where they are.
Right.
And so why not charge the same labor rates as, a brick and mortar? And then, yeah, to your
Right.
point, maybe it's the same labor rates for the work, but maybe there's a service charge on top of that. I mean, I know when I have, different professionals and trades come to my house, there's a service charge associated with that.
Right. A lot of what I run into, though, and I'm not sure if it's just because we're in the automotive repair sector, but or if it's because of the mobile auto repair sector, that people just don't realize exactly what's going on. But you would be amazed at the amount of people that call me and want me to come out to your house and look at your car, and are amazed that there's going to be a charge associated with that. And there's a little education that has to go into that, but it's like, look, would you ever call a plumber or an electrician or anything else to come out to your house and look at your appliance and not expect there to be a charge?
Yeah.
But like I said, with a little education, I've been doing this for over 4 years now, and I haven't had anyone that was really unreasonable with that.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, walk us through maybe the differences of what you do as a mobile mechanic versus somebody that does have a brick and mortar. Like, is the inspection the same? Like, is there any different? Do you do the full inspection on the vehicle every time, regardless of the call? Or are you doing anything different there?
So it really depends. I'm trying to work on some processes to where I'm trying to get a process in place to where I can step back a little bit from this, and I can have someone else come in, and it's going to be like a do as I say, not as I do scenario, because I don't do a full inspection every single time. If it's
Okay.
I need to change a serpentine belt kind of thing, I will do a quick look over the car, and if there's something that could be suspect, or I need to make a note of, I can use my shop management software and take pictures and make notes and stuff like that. I honestly am not the best at it, and I do need to get better.
Got it.
But yeah, like I said, and it's situational. If it's a real quick, hey, I need to do this one thing real fast, yeah. But if it's more in depth, I will definitely do a full digital vehicle inspection.
Awesome.
So,
well, it being such a unique thing in the industry, and not, I mean, again, not, I don't think the common, consumer understands, Brian, but that people like you exist and what you do. How do you go about getting business? Is it traditional ways, or do you have a unique formula?
I mean, I drive a giant billboard, and I was really deliberate with the signage on my truck, and it literally says mobile. I drive a big yellow truck, and it literally says mobile auto repair in big dumb letters and my phone number. And I did that specifically because if you look at a lot of different trades, where it's HVAC or plumbing or electrical or whatever, they have this super cool wrap, and it has all these different things, and they do this stuff, and they have a cool graphic, and but it kind of get lost. It kind of gets lost when you're driving down the road. So from like 600 feet away, you can see my truck and what I do. So that has helped. I do a lot of business cards in places. I have a good working relationship with a lot of the shops in our local area, along as well as the parts stores. So I get a lot of business from them. People traveling in and out of our area. We're kind of at a crossroads in an area, so we have an interstate and a major north-south highway, and we're kind of a tourist destination. So it's just it's nonstop.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
much rather call you than a tow truck.
Correct.
Exactly. I have friends that actually have good relationships with a lot of the tow companies here in town too. And I'm not trying to put anybody out of business, but there's just a lot of things that, you don't need a tow truck for. Like just yesterday, someone was going to get a tow and it was going to cost them $700, and they had a dead battery, and the tow truck didn't have a good jump box, and I had just happened to show up at the right time, at the right place, and threw a good jump box on there, and it cranked up, and they're good to go. And here you go, I saved you a few bucks.
Yeah, well, you got great reviews on your site, and it's because of things like that, right?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to make a bunch of money off a single person. I'm trying to make a little money off anyone that I'm able to help. I'm just trying to be honest with people. And a big part of the reason that I decided to go into business was I had a horrible experience at a shop, and I've only taken a car to a shop twice in my life, and one time was an okay experience. It was just something I couldn't do, and I didn't have the time to do. And then one time it was out of the same thing. Like, I could do it in my driveway, but it was going to take much longer, and I thought it was going to be a good deal at the shop, and it just turned into a bad experience. And it's like, I can do this better, and I have. And
Nice.
I think the biggest thing with a lot of mobile mechanics is they take on huge jobs that they can do, and there's a good profit margin, but if you think about it, if you take on, like, let's say a 6 or 7 hour job, you're sitting in someone's driveway for 6 or 7 hours. All their neighbors are out there like, hey, there's somebody working on this car, depending on where you're at. Some people don't like that. But also, you are one broken bolt away from just complete catastrophic failure. And so if you can, you kind of mitigate that. Like, there's just some jobs that are, if you don't have a lift, if you don't have a cover. I mean, I live in Florida right now. It's like 93 degrees and 112% humidity. Even that by itself, that takes a job from 4 hours out on the driveway with a jack and in the sun or under an umbrella, to if you take it inside a shop under an awning or under a roof with a lift, that 4 or 5 hour job turns into maybe 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. So you can save the customer more money having it at a shop. And I personally, I think there's enough work for everyone, so I don't need to charge someone that much more to do the same job when they can take it to a shop, and that's just better suited for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's just so much of a convenience factor in there. So I mean, I think charging fair, competitive rates, regardless if that's at a shop or at a house, I mean, makes sense to me. Now, you're obviously successful enough to where you're looking to scale the business. So maybe give some advice to somebody else that says, hey, I love what Brian's doing. I may not be able to have the magic tool bus, but I want to build a business, and I'd love some tips on how to make that happen. Like, what would be the first thing that you would tell, that Brian, maybe 5 years ago, as you were getting into this, what would you do differently?
Consume all the knowledge you can. I'm actually listening to a book on Audible right now, called Buy Back Your Time, and the author escapes me, but a lot of that is just amazing information that when I got into this, I had the mindset of, I'm going to work on cars and I want to make more money than I spend. And that was basically my business plan.
Okay.
There's a lot more into it than that. And I wish that I would have taken more time and really thought out the business aspect of it, and then kind of put some things in place to where, you know, I will be the least important person in my business within a few years. I can kind of focus on running the business instead of doing the work, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I think
that.
it was Mike
Being the
Dano on
least
our last
important
show
person.
was talking about the business plan, right?
Yes.
Creating that P&L, you know, what does that look
Yeah.
like? You know, what are all the expenses that I'm actually going to have to start this business?
Yeah.
And then some projected revenues, you know, so what does break even actually look at? Like, you know, how many jobs is that? You know, what are the specific jobs? Because I'm sure you're not trying to be everything to everybody.
Well, it took probably 2 years to get out of that, honestly, because I'm a naturally helpful person. Like I try really hard to help everyone I can and do the best I can in the scenario. But a lot of times I would find myself taking people's problems on and making them my problems. And there's a little bit of that you can do, but then you have to realize, hey, I'm no longer doing this like for myself. I'm doing this as a business. Like I have to keep the lights on. I have to keep gas in my truck. Like I have to make a little bit of money. So some of those things you have to kind of, and it comes with time, honestly. Some of those things you have to learn when to say no. Either whether that's no in the beginning, like, hey, sorry, I'm not the right suit for this, but you know, here's someone who is. And I think that's the big and important part too, is if I can't do it, I can get you in the direction of someone that can help you. And that adds value to people more than, hey, let me try to do it. Well, I can't really do it, or I can't get to it. And just trying to be genuinely helpful has really been a good thing for me.
Yeah. So maybe kind of dig into that just a little bit more when you say having to turn down some jobs. Is it specific to the type of car? Is it specific to the type of service? You know, what kind of refinements have you made to increase that efficiency and probably margin in your business?
Well, I call that older and wiser versus younger and dumber. And it's like I said, it comes with experience. You know, whenever you're, for instance, you're tightening a bolt and you go to tighten it and you get to the point where it's okay, well, it's tight. And then younger and dumber, you was like, oh, I can snug it just a little more. And you break the bolt off. Older and wiser, you was like, nope, that's properly torqued. You're good.
Yeah.
And there's several instances throughout the day when things like that come into happen, or a lot of times, like I usually give a car about 2 hours. If it's a diagnostic call or something like that, I'll tell the people, hey, look, I'm good for 2 hours on this. I'm not going to sit there and just keep racking up. Well, it could be this, or it could be that, or even usually after about a 5 or 10 minute conversation with a person, I would say probably 90% of the time I've got a good idea of what's going on with the vehicle, just because I've been around it enough. And I've had other jobs where getting a good history of a problem helps immensely. So that's really helped. And like I said, a lot of people sit there for 3 or 4 or 5, 6 hours just racking up a bill, and the person is no better off than they were when they first got there. I would much rather just be upfront, like, look, for 2 hours, I will give this my best. And if I can't figure it out in those 2 hours, we'll part ways, and I can get the vehicle to a different person that will be able to take this thing the rest of the way home.
Got it. So is the goal to get in front of that consumer and do the inspection? Are you doing most of the vetting kind of during that diagnostics, or how much of the pre-vetting is happening over the phone? You know, kind of going over the make and model and what's going on with it, so you even know if you're a right fit or not. I feel like that's got to be one of the biggest struggles, right? Somebody's like, "Hey, my car's got this noise, or I got this problem." You know, right there, are you able to determine like if you can help them or not?
Yeah, like I said, I'm about anecdotally, like I don't have any hard data on this. Haven't had a good way to collect it, but I would say 90% of the time, if I talk to a person on the phone, I can decide if I want to mess with it, because some of those when you get into my friend's cousin's, best friend worked on my car, and it's been doing this thing for 6 months, and it's a Pinto, and it's from Minnesota. Like, sorry, I am not the person that needs to work on your car. You can take this to the shop though, because this is something that they do. It's just it's a benefit of being mobile. But like I said, also I've just gotten really good, talking to people and kind of figuring out either A, do I want to mess with it, or B, is it going to be cost effective for me to mess with it?
Got it. How about oil change?
How big of an area do you cover, Brian?
So I cover in our county. I don't know if you're familiar with where I'm at. I'm in the Panhandle of Florida, so I basically cover our county, about 30 miles on an interstate, and a couple hundred square miles.
Gotcha. And on a typical day, I know some jobs will throw it out of whack, but on a typical day of just going to a couple people's houses and maybe stopping in a couple people that are broke down on the interstate. But how many customers, how many jobs can you get done in a day, equating for the time that it takes for you to travel?
Right. So travel is the big thing. Some days, and I'm still trying to refine the process there, because there's some days where I can knock out 5 jobs and they're essentially in the same town or the same neighborhood. And then there's some jobs where there's 3, but they're an hour apart. So the least I've done, obviously I've had days where I didn't work on anything, and usually those days are I kind of plan that so I can work on my own stuff or do stuff around my house. But normally I'll try to shoot for at least 3, but I've actually been up to as many as 9, and that was
nice.
Just a ridiculous, crazy day, and it was 9 over about 17 hours.
Nice.
Dang.
Yeah.
How about oil changes? Do you get, is that something that you're like, hey, I'm interested in doing those, or is that, hey, that's not a good money maker for a mobile mechanic?
So as a rule, I don't do oil changes by themselves. I do for a few friends of mine, that I've done work for before in the past, and I keep up with their cars for them. There's actually a kind of a beginning, like, mobile oil change niche in the mobile auto repair space, where I've seen a lot of people that have like a skid unit in a pickup truck or a trailer, and that's all they're doing is tire rotations and mobile oil changes. And I think that's a cool thing. I don't really try to do it. I usually do that as an add-on service. If I'm already going to be there doing a full brake job, or changing the starter or something like that, hey, I can go ahead and change oil while I'm at it. The customer's happy. It takes a little bit off them, and I'm already there, so I make a couple extra bucks.
Very cool.
What's your ratio right now of repeat customers and new customers? Like, are you looking at 80-20, 70-30, or how are you managing that?
It's almost 50-50, honestly. Probably a little heavier on the first-time customer or one-time customers because of the demographic. Like I said, we have a lot of traveling through here, either on the interstate or vacations. So there's a lot of people that I'll just do work for one time and get them back home. So probably 60-40, I guess, would probably be good. But I do have several repeat customers.
Nice. So Brian, talk to me about your scaling, right? Your vision of growing this. You briefly touched on the fact that you want to bring on another individual, right? And I think a lot of people in your scenario are at that place where, hey, my business is going well. I feel like I have some good processes and procedures down, and now it's time to add on another person to help me do more. Have you got that person identified? Where are you at with that next step in your business, and kind of what's going through your head to help make sure that happens?
Right, that's a good question. So it's something I've struggled with, honestly, for quite some time, because the two directions that I feel like I could go, I could either hire someone to be the mechanic side of it, or I could hire someone to do the back end scheduling, invoicing, that kind of thing. So like I said, I've kind of gone back and forth, but I think I've settled on. I have a friend of mine. His name's Jason. He's a really good dude. He's actually started to help me doing some little jobs and stuff. But I've got it to where I'm just trying to incorporate enough of the back end onto doing a little bit of the mechanic work too. So using our shop management software and an iPad, you can front end a lot of it and then invoice it while you're working on the car before and after.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps streamlining that. I still have to kind of struggle with the scheduling. That's been the biggest part, is because we're mobile, we have to jump from spot to spot. Travel is a big factor, and then because we haven't seen the car whenever we make the quote, obviously we've talked to someone about it and we've kind of got an idea. You don't know what's going on. Just like whenever someone calls and says, "Hey, my car won't start," well, it's usually one of about three things. Well, when you get there and see that there's like a possum that has made a nest in the car and ate half the wiring up, that real quick, and I say this all the time. I say, "I'll be back real quick" to my wife, and she's like, sure. Well, a real quick tire change turns into, well, they didn't tell me that they broke two of the studs off, and this third one, somebody took a grinder to. Like, real quick is never real quick. So that's the biggest, that's my biggest shortcoming right now, is scheduling and being effective in that. Because if you look at, I've got some good Google reviews, but if you look at the negative ones I have, they've all been from people that I couldn't get to, or wasn't able to get to in a timely fashion, or wasn't able to get back with them. They just fell through the cracks. My phone rings. I think it's rang 4 times since we've been on the phone here. It's really hard to get back to 23 phone calls in a day when you have 15 voicemails and 30 text messages and Google messages and Facebook messages, and it's just me. So that's when I'm trying to unload some of that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, a lot of people are in that same spot. So
Yeah.
I think you've showed a lot of success. You showed a lot of grit and determination to keep pushing it forward. And now you're in a great place as a business person where, like, you're looking to take that next step.
Right.
And not everybody gets that step done right the first time. I mean, I've scaled up and grown a few businesses, and it's all about the people. It's all about the individuals that you bring on your team, and then that culture that you start to develop with those individuals is what really helps you scale that business out. I'm curious from your perspective, because I think a lot of people fall into this place too, where it's, hey, I'm looking to scale. Do I put the resources into the front end, kind of the front of the house, or that back of the house that you mentioned?
Right.
And, the advice that I'd give anybody is like, hey, what do you feel like your biggest strength is? Is it the front of the house or the back of the house? Like, hey, and then also not only where you find your biggest strength, but, what brings you the most joy? Because if you're not focused on the things that bring you the most joy, or the things that are your biggest strengths, then it's going to get really grindy for you, because now you're doing the parts of the business that you don't like as much.
Yeah.
And, and the other person, if they're not amazing at what that is, then it's going to be even more frustrating, because then you're going to be trying to coach them up on something that you're really good at. So what part of the business do you love the most?
I love interacting with the customers. I love working on cars. I really do. I love the puzzle aspect of it. Why is the car not working? Well, what is this? What does the ECU expect to see whenever you do this thing? It's just stuff like that. I love learning about different systems and how they interact, and those are the big things. I hate scheduling. I hate paperwork.
Yeah.
Those are two things I kind of loathe. I honestly am not a huge fan of social media, as far as remembering to make posts and cool, like, catchphrases and just that's not my jam. So I think going forward, that's going to be a big part of it, is whenever someone comes on there, I'm going to try to offload a lot of that stuff so I can focus on being out there and helping people.
Yeah. And maybe even kind of a virtual receptionist, type of thing potentially could work out for you too. Or, you know,
Right.
maybe a
I've
little
looked
virtual
at,
person, right? Because they could be anywhere. They don't necessarily have to be
Right.
connected to you to do that kind of work.
yeah. So I've looked at a couple virtual assistants, and a couple different things, and that would definitely help. But like I said, a lot of the phone calls that I get, I feel like, you know, if I don't triage it properly, it can turn into a huge just, you know, disaster. So I do have a hard time offloading that portion of it, of at least talking to the person. So I'm trying to figure out a middle ground there where either someone else can talk to them, and then if it's something like, figure out a way to kind of flag it. Hey, we don't really know about this one. Let me talk to them so I can figure out if that is something good. Because believe it or not, diagnosing a car over the phone can be done, and I feel like I do pretty good at it for what you can do with it. I've had good luck with it.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
if I can do that, and even I've had several people that are they have some knowledge and they have the aptitude for it, and they want to learn. So if I can walk them through checking a few things on the, you know, over the phone, not even looking at the car, or even I've been able to FaceTime people and you know, check this, you know, wiggle that sound, you know, listen for this sound. What does it do when you do that? I've been able to get several people back on the road again, and never even have to leave my truck. So that's been pretty awesome. And I think if you go with a virtual assistant, you lose all that, because, you know, most of the time you're not going to find one that has a good working knowledge of vehicles.
Well, I think you could find that middle ground. You could find a virtual assistant to help you schedule and do those things, but then maybe you still schedule some time every day to call those appointments for tomorrow, to talk to the people about it. So I think there's definitely a good middle ground on that.
Yeah.
That you could find. Well, Brian, we really appreciate you joining us with this episode of For Owners by Owners. It's been just a pleasure to get to meet you and to really understand you and your unique, your really unique side of the business that you're doing. We wish you all the best of luck, man, and hopefully that we can stay in contact. And me and Mike are here. You know how to get a hold of us. If there's anything we can do to help you, let us know. But man, we really appreciate you joining on. I don't have any more questions, Mike. Are you good?
No, I've just been really impressed with your journey, Brian, and we're rooting for you, and excited to see you know, what's next for you and the Magic tool bus. You know, I think it's so cool what you're doing. I love the branding.
The Magic tool bus.
And I'm excited for that that next step, and for you to take that leap into growing the business. And hopefully we see these Magic tool buses all over the U.S. And
we're gonna take over the world with them.
Yeah, I love it. I want to be a part of that journey with you, buddy.
Yeah, cool. Well, I appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
Thanks.